11-year-old Sam escapes an abusive foster home, sneaking onto a delivery truck in a desperate bid for safety. He's discovered by Anna, a gruff loner who reluctantly takes him in. What begins as a temporary act of kindness leads them to Anna's estranged family and a fierce battle for Sam's future when his neglectful foster parents come for him. Will Anna find the strength to fight for Sam in court, risking her own guarded heart in the process? And can this unlikely bond heal the wounds of their pasts in time for Christmas? The delivery truck's engine roared as it groaned through icy back roads, a faint halo of frost forming around the glowing headlights. 10-year-old Sam huddled in the cramped shadows of the truck's cargo bay, his breath visible in the frigid air. The rhythmic clinking of glass bottles above his head masked the erratic pounding of his heart. He clutched his threadbare jacket closer, the fabric so thin it was almost like holding air. Sam hadn't planned to run away on Christmas Eve. Then again, nothing in his life ever seemed to go as planned. His foster father's heavy boots and louder fists had decided for him this time. So when the delivery truck idled just outside the foster home's alley, Sam acted on impulse, squeezing into the half-ajar back door. The boy's body was small for his age, which made it easier to disappear. But now, as the truck bumped along the winding snow-covered road, hunger gnawed at his stomach, and the cold seeped into his bones like an unrelenting tide. He glanced around the darkened space, barely illuminated by faint moonlight slipping through the cracks. His gaze landed on a crate of milk bottles secured with straps. "If I can just," he whispered, extending a trembling hand toward the latch. The truck suddenly jerked to a stop, throwing Sam forward. The bottle crate rattled ominously, and he froze, wide-eyed. A pair of heavy boots scraped the gravel outside. The truck door creaked open, flooding the cargo bay with harsh light. "You've got to be kidding me," said a woman's voice. Her silhouette loomed large against the snowy backdrop. She climbed in, a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. It landed squarely on Sam. "Out, now!" she barked. Sam hesitated, his stomach clenching with both fear and hunger. The woman sighed, running a gloved hand over her face. She stepped closer, and Sam instinctively flinched. Her eyes narrowed, softening only slightly when she noticed the faint bruises on his cheekbone. "Look, kid, I'm not about to babysit some runaway," she said, crossing her arms. "Get out before I call the cops." Sam's voice cracked as he whispered, "Please, don't call them." The woman paused, studying him more closely. Her breath hitched, an almost imperceptible sound, but she masked it with a gruff exhale. "What's your name?" "Sam," he murmured. His gaze darted nervously to the snowy road beyond. He didn't want to get out, not with nowhere to go, not when he was this cold. "Well, Sam," she said, dropping into a crouch to meet his eye level, "what exactly were you planning to do back here? Eat frozen milk cartons?" Sam shrugged but didn't answer. His fingers curled protectively around his knees. The woman straightened, glancing at the empty stretch of road ahead. "Unbelievable," she muttered under her breath. Then louder, "I'm Anna. This truck is my livelihood, so if you damage anything, we'll have a problem. Got it?" Sam nodded quickly, his teeth chattering. Anna's sharp gaze softened again as she took in the boy's condition. The bruises, the hollowed-out cheeks, the way his shoes were held together with duct tape. "All right," she said gruffly. "You can stay, just until I reach the next town, then you're on your own." Relief washed over Sam's face, though he tried to hide it. He simply nodded, his eyes cast down. Anna climbed out of the truck and slammed the door, muttering something about, "What on earth am I doing?" Moments later, the engine roared back to life, and the truck rolled forward again. Sam leaned back against the wall, his stomach growling louder than the tires crunching snow. In the cab, Anna adjusted the rearview mirror to glance at the boy in the cargo bay. She cursed under her breath when she saw him shivering, his arms wrapped tightly around himself. Against her better judgment, she pulled over again and yanked the door open. "Get up here," she snapped. "It's warmer." Sam hesitated, unsure if this was a trick. But the icy wind was unrelenting, and his limbs were stiffening by the second. He scrambled into the cab, shrinking into the passenger seat as Anna tossed a blanket at him. "Thank you," he murmured. "Don't thank me. Just don't mess anything up," Anna replied. eyes fixed on the road, but the tension in her jaw betrayed her unease. She'd spent years perfecting the art of solitude. Letting anyone, especially a kid, into her space was something she swore she'd never do again. As the truck rumbled toward the snow-draped horizon, Anna glanced sideways at Sam, now fast asleep under the blanket. His small frame seemed even smaller in the oversized seat, and for a fleeting moment, she thought of another child, another Christmas, long ago. She shook the thought away, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Just until the next town," she whispered to herself. "That's it." But deep down, she already knew it wouldn't be that simple. Anna's truck roared through the winding mountain roads, cutting through the quiet of a snow-blanketed world. The soft snores of the boy beside her were oddly calming, but they also left her with a persistent knot in her chest. Sam's head rested against the frosted window, his face half buried in the coarse blanket she'd given him. Anna hadn't planned to make stops, but by the time they reached the outskirts of a small, snow-covered town, her growling stomach and a sputtering fuel gauge forced her to pull into a dimly lit diner that doubled as a gas station. She shook Sam's shoulder gently. "Wake up, kid," she said, her voice softer than she intended. Sam stirred, blinking at her groggily. "Where are we?" he asked, his voice hoarse from sleep. "Pit stop," Anna replied. "Come on. You can't stay in here alone." Sam hesitated, but the promise of warmth and the faint smell of something frying was enough to pull him out of the cab. He hugged the blanket around him as he followed Anna inside. The diner was quiet, save for the hiss of the grill and the faint hum of an old jukebox in the corner. A gray-haired waitress looked up, her tired eyes narrowing at the sight of them. "What can I get you?" she asked, her tone brusque but not unfriendly. "2 coffees and whatever's hot," Anna said, glancing at the menu scrawled on a chalkboard. She fished out a crumpled bill from her pocket, making a mental note of her dwindling cash. "Just water for me?" Sam piped up quietly, his eyes darting nervously between Anna and the waitress. "Kid, you're eating," Anna said firmly. "No arguments." The waitress raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Anna and Sam to sit at a corner booth. Sam fidgeted with the blanket, his fingers worrying at a loose thread. "So," Anna began, breaking the silence, "you want to tell me what you were running from?" Sam's eyes darted to the window, where snow was falling in thick, lazy flakes. He shrugged but didn't answer. "Look, I don't need your life story," Anna said, leaning back in the booth. "But if I'm going to help you, I need to know what we're up against." Sam glanced at her cautiously. You're helping me?" he asked, his voice tinged with both hope and disbelief. "Don't read too much into it, kid," Anna replied, though the edge in her tone had softened. "I just don't feel like explaining to the cops why I left a half-frozen 10-year-old on the side of the road." Sam's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "I'm 11, he corrected her. "Oh, well, that changes everything," Anna deadpanned, rolling her eyes. But she couldn't help the small smirk that tugged at the corner of her mouth. The waitress returned with 2 steaming plates of scrambled eggs and toast, setting them down with a clatter. Sam's eyes widened at the sight of the food. He waited, hesitant, until Anna nodded toward the plate. "Go on," she said. "Eat." Sam dug in with a fervor that made Anna's chest ache. She looked away, focusing instead on the snow piling up outside. She told herself she didn't need to get involved. The kid wasn't her problem, but the bruises on his face and the too thin jacket he wore told a story she couldn't ignore. Back in the truck, Sam seemed more at ease, his face slightly flushed from the warmth of the diner. He even hummed softly to himself, a sound so quiet Anna almost missed it. "What's that?" she asked. Sam looked embarrassed. "Nothing." Anna raised an eyebrow but let it go. She wasn't sure when she'd started caring about his moods, but the realization unsettled her. She flicked on the radio, hoping to drown out her thoughts. A soft Christmas tune filled the cab, and Sam's humming grew louder, more confident. As the truck climbed higher into the mountains, the weather worsened. Thick snowflakes clung to the windshield, and the wipers struggled to keep up. Anna's hands tightened on the wheel. "We're stopping," she announced. "I'm not driving through this." Sam looked up, alarmed. "Where will we go?" Anna gestured toward a faint light in the distance. "There. It's my parents' place." Sam's expression shifted to one of surprise. Your parents? Anna's jaw clenched. She hadn't meant to say that out loud. Don't get any ideas, she said quickly. It's just for the night. Sam didn't press her, but his curiosity was evident. He stayed quiet as the truck rolled into a long, snow-covered driveway. The house at the end was modest but warm-looking, with smoke curling from the chimney and Christmas lights glowing softly in the windows. Anna parked and turned to Sam. Don't touch anything. Don't say anything. And for the love of God, don't mention where I found you. Sam nodded solemnly, clutching his blanket like a shield. Together, they stepped into the cold night air, their boots crunching through the snow. The door opened before Anna could knock. A woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair stood in the doorway, her face lighting up with surprise and something else, relief, at the sight of Anna. Anna, the woman said softly, you came. Don't make a big deal out of it, Mom, Anna replied, brushing past her. We just need a place to crash. Her mother's eyes flicked to Sam, who was hovering behind Anna like a shadow. And who's this? She asked, her voice gentle. Anna hesitated. He's just a kid who needed help. Her mother's gaze softened even more. Well, come in, both of you. It's too cold to stand out there. As Sam stepped into the warmth of the house, his wide-eyed wonder betrayed him. He hadn't seen a place like this, so full of light and love, in years. For the first time in what felt like forever, he dared to hope. The living room smelled of cinnamon and pine, a combination that made Sam's stomach flutter with an unfamiliar warmth. Margaret, Anna's mother, bustled between the kitchen and the fireplace, occasionally glancing at Sam as if to gauge whether he was warm enough or hungry again. Anna, however, lingered by the window, her arms crossed, her eyes distant. Sam sat quietly on the couch, his blanket now folded neatly in his lap. He hadn't meant to stare at the twinkling Christmas tree in the corner, but its soft glow was mesmerizing. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been near one. Do you like it? Margaret asked gently, setting a plate of cookies on the coffee table. Her voice startled Sam, and he quickly nodded, his cheeks reddening. It's beautiful, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Margaret smiled. It's been years since we had anyone to appreciate it. Anna shifted uncomfortably, her gaze fixed on the snowstorm raging outside. Mom, don't start. Margaret raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. She turned her attention back to Sam. How do you take your hot chocolate, dear? Marshmallows? Whipped cream? Sam blinked, his throat tightening. He had no idea there were options. Just plain, please. Anna snorted softly, the sound laced with both amusement and something else, something closer to pain. You're spoiling him, Mom. Margaret ignored her, disappearing into the kitchen. Sam dared a glance at Anna. Your mom's really nice. Anna let out a dry laugh. Yeah, well, don't let her fool you. She can be relentless. Sam frowned, unsure what she meant, but he didn't press. He had learned the hard way that asking too many questions could make things worse. By the time David arrived, Anna's younger brother, the snowstorm had grown into a full-blown blizzard. He stomped snow from his boots as he entered, a tall man with an easy smile that immediately put Sam at ease. Anna, he said, shaking his head in mock disbelief. Didn't think you'd actually show up this year. Don't get used to it, Anna replied, though her tone lacked its usual sharpness. David's eyes landed on Sam, and his expression softened. And who's this little guy? Sam, the boy answered quickly, glancing nervously at Anna for approval. Sam's just passing through, Anna said, her voice firm. He needed a place to stay for the night. David's gaze lingered on Sam a moment longer before he nodded. Well, you're welcome here, Sam. Anyone who can survive a ride with Anna deserves a medal. Sam smiled shyly, and David's grin widened. For the first time that evening, the room felt lighter. The peace didn't last long. It was late when the pounding started at the front door. Anna and Margaret exchanged wary looks as David went to answer it. Sam's face went pale, and his hands gripped the blanket tightly. Two figures loomed on the porch, their faces shadowed by the storm. But Sam recognized them instantly, his foster parents. There you are, the man bellowed, his voice carrying an edge of feigned relief. We've been worried sick. Anna stepped forward, her jaw tight. Who are you? We're his legal guardians. the woman snapped, pushing past David. Her eyes raked over Sam, her expression hardening. "You've got some nerve running off like that." Sam shrank back against the couch, his small frame trembling. "I'm not going back," he whispered, his voice breaking. Margaret placed a protective hand on Sam's shoulder. "The boy doesn't look like he wants to leave," she said, her tone calm but firm. The foster father scoffed. "He's a kid. He doesn't know what's good for him." Anna's fists clenched at her sides. "And what's good for him? Those bruises on his face?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing us of something? Because that's a serious claim, lady." "I'm not accusing," Anna shot back. "I'm stating a fact," the man sneered. "Well, fact or not, we're taking him back. You've got no right to keep him here." Sam's voice cracked as he cried out, "Please don't make me go!" The room fell silent, save for the howling wind outside. Margaret crouched beside Sam, her hands resting gently on his shoulders. "You're safe here," she said softly. "We won't let them take you." The foster parents exchanged a glance, their earlier confidence faltering. "We'll see about that," the woman said. "This isn't over." As they stormed out, Anna exhaled sharply, her hands trembling. "They'll be back," she said, her voice low. "With the police or worse." David crossed his arms, his expression grim. "Then we'll be ready." Sam looked up at Anna, tears streaming down his face. "They'll make me go back," he whispered. "Won't they?" Anna crouched beside him, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Not if I can help it." For the first time, Sam saw something in Anna's eyes he hadn't noticed before. A fierce determination that made him believe, even if only for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to face the worst alone. The storm raged on through the night, but the warmth inside the house remained steadfast. Anna stayed up late, poring over her options and making phone calls to anyone who would listen. She didn't know how to fight this battle, but for Sam, she was willing to try. Tomorrow would bring a fight she wasn't sure she could win. But for now, she sat by the fire, Sam fast asleep beside her, and let herself hope. Morning arrived quietly, the storm having spent itself during the night. The world outside was buried under a pristine layer of snow, and the house, with its glowing windows and steady warmth, felt like a sanctuary. But the tension inside was palpable. Margaret was in the kitchen, quietly brewing coffee, while David paced the living room. Anna sat at the table, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp but controlled. "I'm telling you, he's not safe with them," she said, gripping the edge of the table. "There's bruises, malnutrition. Look, just help me figure out what I need to do to file for emergency custody." Sam sat nearby, hunched over, his hands folded tightly in his lap. The blanket from the truck was still wrapped around his shoulders like a shield. Anna ended the call with a frustrated sigh, running a hand through her hair. "They said we'd need proof," she said to David. "Something concrete." David frowned. "What kind of proof?" Sam's face tells the whole story. "It's not enough," Anna replied. Her voice softened as she looked at Sam. "They're going to push the narrative that we kidnapped him. If we don't handle this carefully, they'll win." Margaret stepped forward, her tone calm but resolute. "Then we'll fight. Together." Anna opened her mouth to argue, but the doorbell rang, cutting her off. Everyone froze. "It's them," Sam whispered, his voice trembling. David placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "Stay here," he said, heading for the door. This time, it wasn't just Sam's foster parents on the porch. A police officer stood with them, his expression neutral but firm. The foster parents wasted no time. "There he is," the woman said, pointing through the doorway at Sam. "We told you they were keeping him against his will." Margaret stepped forward, her chin held high. "That's not true," she said calmly. "Sam is here because he was afraid for his safety." The officer turned to Sam, who peeked out from behind the couch. "Is that true, son?" he asked gently. "Are you afraid to go back with them?" Sam's lower lip quivered as he nodded. "Yes, sir," the foster father scoffed. "He's lying. He's been trouble since day one. He's just trying to avoid consequences." Anna stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He's trying to avoid being hurt. Look at him. Do you really think he's safe with them?" The officer's gaze lingered on Sam's bruised face before returning to Anna. "I'll need everyone to come down to the station," he said. "A judge will need to decide what happens next." The courthouse was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth of Margaret's home. Sam sat beside Anna, his small hands clutching hers tightly. Anna had never been one for overt displays of affection, but she didn't pull away. The foster parents sat across the room, their lawyer whispering furiously in their ears. Anna's own lawyer, a friend of David's, flipped through a stack of papers, his face calm but focused. When it was time for Sam to speak, his hands shook as he stepped forward. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes but a kind demeanor, addressed him gently. "Sam, can you tell me why you ran away?" she asked. Sam hesitated, his voice barely audible. "I didn't feel safe," he said. They hit me sometimes, and they didn't care if I ate." The foster mother gasped dramatically. "He's making this up." "Order," the judge said firmly, silencing her. Anna's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have photographic evidence of bruises, as well as testimony from Ms. Anna and her family regarding the boy's condition when they found him." The foster parent's lawyer countered, arguing that Anna had no right to take Sam without contacting the authorities first. The tension in the room was thick, every word adding weight to the scales that would determine Sam's fate. Finally, the judge turned to Anna. "Why did you take him in?" Anna's throat tightened, but she stood tall. "Because he needed help," she said simply. "I've been where he is. I know what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like no one's coming to save you. I wasn't about to let him feel that way 1 second longer than he already had." The judge studied her for a long moment, then turned to Sam. "Sam, who do you want to live with?" Sam's eyes filled with tears as he looked at Anna. "Her," he said, his voice trembling. "She's the only one who ever made me feel safe." The courtroom fell silent. The judge's pen scratched across a piece of paper as she wrote something down. Then finally she looked up. "Custody is awarded to Anna Walters," she said. "Effective immediately." Sam let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding, and Anna's knees nearly buckled with relief. Margaret and David exchanged tearful smiles, their faith in Anna vindicated. The foster parents erupted in protest, but the judge silenced them with a single sharp word. "Enough." Back at Margaret's house, the Christmas tree glowed softly in the dim light. Sam sat in front of it, a small wrapped present in his hands. "It's for you," Margaret said, her voice warm. Sam opened the gift carefully, revealing a knit scarf in bright, cheerful colors. He looked up, his eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered. Anna sat nearby, watching him with a rare smile. She wasn't one for sentiment, but seeing Sam's joy, knowing he was safe, made her chest ache in the best way. As the first snowflakes of a new storm began to fall outside, Sam leaned against Anna, his head resting on her shoulder. "Are we a family now?" he asked hesitantly. Anna wrapped an arm around him, pulling him close. "Yeah, kid," she said softly. "We're a family." The warmth of the fire, the laughter of Margaret and David, and the quiet peace in Sam's heart made the moment feel like the beginning of something new, something good. For the first time in years, Christmas felt like home. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment and let us know what part moved you the most. Your thoughts help keep these stories alive and inspire more heartfelt tales to come. Subscribe for more stories of hope, connection, and triumph over adversity.